Everything in life was easy for Stella. She was well aware of how lucky she was. Stella was the only daughter of a well-to-do father. The girl's mother had died many years ago. Her father was not very strict in his upbringing and Stella grew up spoiled. By the age of 23 the girl had graduated from university. She studied poorly, and when she was finally rid of boring classes, she decided to live only for herself. Nights in clubs, overseas resorts. Her rich father paid for everything, hoping that with time her daughter would grow up. One day Stella and two of her friends were walking downtown. On the promenade, they looked at numerous street artists for a while. Stella spotted a young, handsome man dressed in a shabby shirt. The girls stopped in front of him, giving the artist a chance to appreciate their magnificence. But the man was not embarrassed and calmly invited the girls to draw their portraits. After thinking for a while, the girlfriends agreed. In just an hour, the artist drew all three of them. The last young woman took the drawing in her hands and walked leisurely toward her friends, who were waiting nearby. As she neared them, she suddenly shouted at them to run, tugged her friend's arms with force, and rushed away, laughing loudly. The girls only stopped when they rounded the corner of an outdoor cafe. Stella's friend laughingly admitted that she hadn't paid the artist. Stella remarked that this was mean, because the artist looks like a hobo and drew them very nicely. But her friend suddenly took offense at these words and suggested Stella go and sleep with the artist as a consolation. Stella said that's exactly what she'll do. The girls made a bet: if Stella sleeps with this guy during the week her friends will throw her the best party of the year at the club. The next day, Stella arrived at the promenade closer to evening. The young painter noticed her from afar and looked at her questioningly. When she came closer, he wondered if she had now come to steal his paints. Stella was embarrassed and held out a few $100 bills to the guy. In response to his remark that it was too much, the girl admitted that she was very embarrassed about her girlfriend's behavior last night. And then she invited the guy to the restaurant. Kevin, that was the artist's name, agreed. On the way, Stella insisted that they stop at a hair salon and a clothing store. Otherwise Kevin would never have been allowed into the restaurant. At the restaurant, Stella looked at Kevin with amazement. She hadn't even expected that the new clothes and hairstyle would change the guy so much. Unexpectedly, she wondered how he was in such a horrible situation. The artist told his story. His parents died when he was in school. Kevin was brought up by his grandfather, who left him an apartment and a cottage in the country. Kevin used the money from the sale of the cottage to go to America and succeed there. He painted pictures that the public liked, and the artist thrived. But tragedy struck. His fiancée Mary was died in a car accident while returning from trying on a wedding dress. Kevin was never able to recover from this blow. His inspiration was gone, and nothing brought joy. He was severely depressed, unable to work and constantly drinking to numb the pain of loss. Money quickly ran out, there was nothing left to live on in USA, and Kevin came back to his native country. At home he began to make paintings on the streets so that he could buy food. For the first year he drank continuously, then alcohol became disgusting and did not bring relief. Sometimes the guy rented rooms in hostels, and in the warmer months he lived outdoors. Stella asked what happened to the apartment his grandfather had left him. Why didn't he live in it? Kevin confusedly explained that a woman with two small children was living there. At first she rented the apartment, but now she is in a very poor situation, she can't even pay the rent. But it was a shame to kick her and children out. After asking for the bill, Stella categorically told Kevin that she would rent a hotel room for him. She justified her decision by the fact that she thought the guy needed to live like a human being for at least a week and come to his senses. The artist could not find the strength to refuse. Every day, Stella came to Kevin's hotel room. They talked a lot. Mostly the artist poured out his soul, and the girl listened and showed sympathy. Frankly, she didn't entirely believe Kevin. It seemed to her that in many ways he was embellishing his life story. On the third day, they both drank a lot, and Stella finally managed to seduce the guy. After spending the night with him, she hurried to leave the hotel before the artist woke up. She left a note on the nightstand, saying that the room was paid for several days in advance and Kevin could stay here, and that she was grateful for his night and sincerely wished him the meaning of life again. Her friends, seeing the photo report, threw a huge party and Stella went back to her old life. But after a while the young woman began to feel nauseous in the morning and the test was positive. The girl was not used to hiding anything from her father. He always took his daughter's side in all situations. She confessed to him that she was pregnant and told him directly how it happened. But her father's reaction shocked the girl. She had never seen him in such anger. The father yelled that he was fed up with his daughter's antics, that he was tired of putting up with her and waiting for her to finally grow up. After calming down a little, he said that sleeping on a bed with a homeless street artist and getting pregnant by him was too much, and now his daughter would do as he would tell her, or she could take herself out on the street. The father ordered his daughter not to even think about having an abortion and to bring the father of his future grandchild to live in their house. Stella was shocked by her father's proposal. But she had no choice, because she did not want to live like a beggar. Kevin was easy to find, but it wasn't easy to convince him to move in. She had to tell him that she was pregnant. The news made Kevin excited and the shocked guy agreed to go with Stella. Kevin quickly managed to find common ground with the girl's father. On the first evening, the artist said that he was not going to live off them, and will be back to paint for sale. The father nodded approvingly, and after a few days, the young man began to re-establish his old acquaintances with the gallery owners. Meanwhile, Stella became more and more frowny every day. She felt embarrassed and ashamed to live with Kevin under the same roof. Her friends openly laughed at her. Stella regretted the day she had agreed to that silly argument 1,000 times. It was good that Kevin did not try to claim intimacy. They lived in separate rooms. The artist was constantly absent in the studio, which was equipped in one of the rooms of the mansion. After a while, Kevin opened an account in Stella's name and began to transfer money there. At first small amounts, but each month they were becoming more and more tangible. In the spring, Stella gave birth to a healthy baby girl, but even motherhood did not make her happy. She was angry that Kevin was easily accepted by her father, and that she was no longer the center of the universe, but her daughter. One day Kevin was hurrying into Stella's room. He felt it was time to talk about their relationship. The man was no longer a beggarly homeless man. He was beginning to earn a good living again. His apartment, left by his grandfather, was finally vacant, and the artist was almost finished renovating it. In addition, there was interest in his paintings at an exhibition in New York, and Kevin hoped he would be able to talk Stella into trying to start a relationship again. The guy was sure they liked each other. From behind the bedroom door came laughing laughter. Kevin stopped and unwittingly overheard the conversation. Stella was telling her friends that she did not sleep in the same bed with a former homeless man, and that she tolerated him in the house only because of her father, who loved his granddaughter and had become attached to the ragamuffin. Kevin went back to his room, packed his things, and left the house without telling anyone. The father, upon learning that Kevin had left their home, was furious. He accused his daughter of losing her happiness. It turns out that the father found out about his daughter's pregnancy, immediately hired a detective to find out everything about the artist. It turned out that Kevin comes from a very good family and graduated from a famous art school. Now his new paintings are for sale in a gallery in New York. And his daughter had herself rejected a worthy man with whom she had a child. For the first 3 months, Stella worked diligently to incite her anger toward Kevin, and then she found herself pining for him. One day Stella's father asked her how long she was going to suffer instead of finding Kevin and trying to win him back. With a sob, she replied that she had no idea where to look for the man. Her father glared at her, then walked out and returned with a piece of paper with the address written on it. Kevin went to a small town, rented a workshop there, and tried to work. But he missed his daughter and Stella terribly. When he saw Stella on the doorstep, he could hardly believe his eyes. She stroked his bristly cheek and simply suggested to go home. And she added that her daughter and father missed Kevin. And then she finally admitted that she couldn't live without Kevin either. He didn't need much convincing. His heart was already bursting for Stella and the girl. After a long way, Kevin and Stella finally found each other. It may have taken them a long time, but the result was worth it. They are together and happy, they have a family, and what could be more important than that?